hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Health official YouTube channel.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Ascending. I am your host, April R. Silver. If you're watching live, it's Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So again, good morning, greetings, welcome. Ekaro, Eko Sheifa, Eko Oshe Oshun. If you know, you know. So I wanted to say that this is the time before we get into the bulk, the reason why we're here. Go ahead and sign in. Go ahead and tell your people. Go ahead and say where you're watching from in the chat. You know how we do. We love to see where you are watching from. We're going to get into some comments and questions at the end of the show. But right now, we just want people to settle in and buckle up. This is Saturday, right? April 12th. And it is the second day of Black Maternal Health Week. That is the topic of discussion for today. We will soon bring to the stage our featured guest, Dr. DANETT BEAN. So we're about to dig in deep into Black maternal health, how that relates to current day, some historical context. We're going to get into racism that's involved, and why we need to have a Black Maternal Health Week in the first place. We'll talk about who started it. So continue to log on. But I'm going to take again a note of personal privilege. Like I said, today is Saturday, April 12th, and that's a national holiday in my world, right? Because it is my father's birthday. If you all saw me on Night School last Thursday, April 3rd, I was on Night School with my dear brother, the owner of this channel, Marc Lamont Hill. We talked about aging parents, right? We talked about what that looks like and the emotional toll and the balancing act that people in my generation, particularly Generation X, and I talked about my father. That is a picture of me and Eddie Silver Jr. from 2009. I was visiting him in Florida. So forgive the glossiness in my glossy lips, but that's my father, and today is his birthday, and he is now 78. 78. If you watch the show, if you've heard me talk about it, that's a picture from when we were living in Los Angeles. Eddie Silver Jr., who is Daddy, and some people know him as June because he's a junior. But point of personal privilege, I am so ecstatic that he is still alive. You've heard me talk about he is in hospice care at home. Shout out to Miss Pat, my other mother, his current wife. He's in hospice care. He's in a vegetative state with dementia and Alzheimer's. So I just, because I can, just shout out the fact that he's still here. He's still waking up every day. And it's amazing to me that he does. It's really a testament. And I wanted to give him his props as the daddy's girl that I am. So now that the personal privileges well, I can't say it's over. I might just do it again at the end. But what we really want to do is just jump into our amazing topic today, Black Maternal Health Week. And oh, wait, before we do, the bookmark, you know how I always shout out the books because I'm a writer and an editor and I love reading and writing and editing. The bookmark for today is related to the guests. So our guest is Dr. DANETT BEAN. The book, which is an online bestseller, is called A Taste of Our Own Medicine. So she's going to talk about that, and she's going to explain, leave this up for a minute, guys. She's going to explain what in the world is postnatal depletion. She's also going to talk about how she almost perished when she was giving birth to her son. So Dr. DANETT BEAN is a doctor of acupuncture. She is a doctor of Eastern medicine. She is an amazing human being who knows how to help us heal in a particular context. So we're going to get into all of that. So let's welcome to the stage one of my doctors and a friend, an amazing human being and healer, Dr. DANETT BEAN. There you are. There you are. We got to turn your mic on. There we go. So it's so good to see you, sis. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to be here. Um, yeah, I had the thought of us just maybe taking a few deep breaths just because of um, we sometimes we breathe up higher, and given what today is an auspicious day, so that definitely brings the energy up, but just in terms of helping us to um, keep our chi moving, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I would
Okay.
just invite all of the listeners to just take a nice deep breath in as low as you can get towards your abdomen, and then exhale out and just sigh it out. We're going to do 2 more of these. Nice deep inhale, as low as we can get, and sigh it out. And 1 more, nice deep inhale, and sigh it out. Yes. Yes, when we were born, this is how we breathed, lower to our abdomen, or what we call our dantian, and that just helps to keep us charged, and the sighing out just helps to make sure our chi is moving, because with all the things that have been going on politically, it's easy for our breaths to get stuck, and that causes tension. So I like to sometimes make space before I'm giving more at this time in history. So
And that's why I love who you are and how you do what you do. When you gave us a heads up that this is how you wanted to open the program, I was like, that is so Dr. DANETT. And I mean that as a compliment, because we can go through life, go through our day, go through the morning, and not realize the importance of breathing and centering ourselves, and proper breathing as well. I know that there's a lot of talk in your field about how, as human beings, we typically breathe through our mouth. And is it fair to say the proper way? I don't know if I want to use the word proper, but you'll let me know. Is that we should be breathing through our nose, inhaling through our nose, and exhaling through our mouth. Um, can you address that a little bit just before we get into everything else?
sure, sure. So, I mean, I think it depends on what's going on with that person. So, like sometimes if it's during, if someone has a stuffy nose, you just got to breathe the best way that you can. The ideal way is typically through the nose, but that sighing out can help to just relieve stagnation and blocked energy, which is really important right now for the,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We are the people who are very mindful of what's going on in the political realm and the economic realm. We're not the ones to turn our heads away, right? We are the artists and the activists and the community organizers. And sometimes I believe that we might not take as much time as we could, or I dare say should. I don't like the word should, but just to center ourselves. So thank you for being who you be and bringing that before we even get into the discussion. So this is free flowing. So we're going to get to people's questions also at the end. But I want to remind people that this is the second day of Black Maternal Health Week, which is held annually. We're going to talk about that even a little bit more. But you are, as a healer, yes, a doctor of acupuncture, yes, a doctor of Eastern medicine, but you specialize in women's health. So you're welcome here, especially so because of that, and because you make the connection between what's going on with Black maternal health and wellness and the current state of affairs within that context of the racist society that we're living in. So, can you give us an overarching view on why Black maternal health needs the celebration and the honoring that we're giving it? And we'll get into the founders of it a little bit later. But why is this even important in the first place?
It's so important because the disparity with the rate of maternal mortality is the word that I keep, seeing as I read literature: unacceptable. World Health Organization, New York Health Chief Commissioner. The words are unacceptable in terms of what our rates are. And here in the United States, as a developed country, it leads, or it has the worst maternal mortality rate for a developed country. So I believe that we all have a right to live our lives, to take, deep breaths, and to not have issues that can be prevented, to have issues that can be prevented, stopped. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's so let me back up. So 84, it was found that over about 80 or 84% of maternal deaths could be prevented. And that number is staggering. It's
Yeah.
it's really staggering.
And is that overall, or is that just um, overall, or is that specific to Black women?
I think it's overall. I think
Okay, it's
the
still
way
too
I
it's
took
too high.
it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Um, yeah, and as it is in this country, right, for Black people, we're all these statistics, right? But it's like we're almost 60% more likely to die prematurely because of what's called the social determinants of health. So we have these different things. So if we think about life as a path or a journey, right? We have these different steps and phases along the way that can either help improve our wellness, help us to ascend, right? Or help us, or have us go the opposite way. Very few events do we kind of keep it at neutral. And so with how racism affects our health, these steps, these phases that happen, we have to do all that we can to make sure that we come up stronger from it, because of all of the different issues that we deal with along the way. And so that's why sometimes when women get to, I know we're talking about maternal health, but I do believe it is involved even with when women go through perimenopause, and even for women who never give birth, the way that the system has not been set up. The medical system in the US was not set up with women in mind. It was not set up with Black people in mind. And so we have some amazing practitioners, amazing doctors, people doing like, life-changing things, and still, the structure of it was not created for us. And so that's why we have these high rates, and why having Black Maternal Health Week is really important, to bring awareness to the unnecessary lives that have been lost. And then also, I'll say that there's a lot of talk that about the mortality, which is gripping, but we say the maternal mortality is the tip of the iceberg, but the iceberg itself, which we don't really see, is the maternal morbidity, which is
What do you mean? Let's break it down even further. What do you mean by maternal morbidity, and that being the iceberg that you're about to break down?
Yeah. So the maternal morbidity are the different factors that can happen as a during pregnancy, or it can happen a few years later. They say
Years.
even afterwards, that can have an impact, short or for a lifetime, on a woman's health and well-being. So the mortality gets it grips us, because it's like these women are gone, and many of the deaths are preventable. But underneath it is the ways in which our health and well-being can be greatly affected by it. And that is where it can be a little bit more tricky in what they're working to do more of is, categorize the symptoms. But for us, as I don't like the term alternative, but for Eastern medicine practitioners, and for those who have a different view, on the body and health, we can be very helpful because we're helping someone, helping a woman, and we're looking at her multidimensionally.
So what is the what comes to mind is we know that anyone dying giving birth is heartbreaking, right? And that we're doing so as Black women at an astonishing rate is outrageous and disgusting. But now you're talking about the lingering effects that happens to a person's body after they give birth. What are some of those things that linger as a result of having given birth that threatens that person's health? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
those specific things that happens to the body?
Yes. So some people then have more of a tendency towards anemia, which increases the likelihood of cardiovascular issues. Some people are deal with the results of their core just being a lot weaker, and so how that impacts their ability for true mobility.
Okay,
Yeah, there are a host of
of
different
things
ways that it
that
can.
all
And the thing
came
is, they're still sorting it out. But for us in Eastern medicine, when we see someone, we're looking across the board to see the connecting dots of things that can seem so separate and
right,
unrelated.
but there's a connection. Tell us about your story. You've been very open about your story. You've done interviews before where your experience in giving birth to your amazing son. Uh, Take us on that journey. Tell us what that was like, because the after effects and the near death experience prompted you to write a book. So explain that for those who may not know.
Sure. So I will say that the ego is a powerful thing because I was a little gassed because I had completed my postgraduate work in women's health and geriatrics. And then I was teaching obstetrics and gynecology at an acupuncture school. And so when you're teaching, you have to go through, the material a bunch. And even in preparing for it, I just felt like I knew women's health. I know. And so I know this stuff. And then, I put a lot of attention on making sure that the pregnancy that I, was really healthy, doing all the things that I knew to do, but we don't always know what will happen. And that was the hugest lesson for me is even sometimes when we are doing our best, when we end up in a situation that then tests that, sometimes there are things that are a bit out of our control. So I ended up hemorrhaging. I had what's called a fourth degree tear, which was a total tear. And at that moment, like I remember giving birth, and in my mind, all the hard work, was done. Like we had gotten there. But at the time where I thought, we were at the finish line, like, okay, he's here, he's okay, great. And then, people are screaming in the delivery room, get this, get that. And I really felt myself fading. And I was like, I had a moment where I was like,
But wait, hold on. They were screaming, "Get this, get that!" Like something was wrong,
because
or
I was
what?
hemorrhaging. A
Oh,
lot of
oh,
blood was
okay, okay.
coming out of me. Yeah.
Right. Okay, okay.
And
Gotcha. And
I
you
just
felt
had a
yourself.
moment where I was like, oh my God, I think I might die. Like the way they were and how I felt, I never felt like that before. And I was like, it was just such a moment where the assumptions that we can make, like, we just never know, right? We just never know.
Right,
So thankfully, I know that it is all due to God, higher power, the ancestors, that there was something else in mind for me, because there are many women who did not make it out, who hemorrhaged, or even if they didn't have issues at right after the delivery, had other issues that have taken their life. And so, I get emotional because I know you talked about your dad's birthday today. My birthday is during Black Maternal Health Week. So when Black Maternal Health Week started, like that was kind of like the dip on the top. Like when that started and then it was my birthday, I'm like, the preciousness of having a birthday, the preciousness, you just realize it. So, I things were challenging after it, but I knew what to do. But then we were put back on a newborn breastfeeding schedule when my son was 5 months, and that's kind of what took it over because they felt like he wasn't gaining enough weight. So we went back on a newborn breastfeeding schedule right when we were all starting to sleep through the night, which is just pure hell. If everybody's able to finally sleep, and then it's like, no,
Right.
we got to do that. So it was great for him. He got chunkier and all of that. And, my body was like, oh.
Right.
Um, and so
Right.
then I dealt with a series of different health ailments that I understand as postnatal depletion, which is something that actually has been written about for a very long time. But typically, if a woman has any health issues after giving birth, at least at that time, it must be postpartum depression. It's got to be that. If you say anything, it's labeled like that. And that is in no way to minimize postpartum depression.
Right.
It's very real. It has a tremendous effect on those who experience it and their families and the babies and their communities. It's huge. But
Right.
before I wrote the book, I was like, I failed to understand how one of the most physical processes that a human being can do, you're telling me that there's nothing that can go on as a result physically of this afterwards? I just could not accept that. And from knowing my body and from the studies that I had done prior, I was like, there's got to be more to this. Um,
Right.
so yeah, so it's been called given different names over the years: depleted mother syndrome, postpartum nutritional depletion, postpartum exhaustion. It's gotten these different names. Postnatal depletion most recently was given that term, from my knowledge, from a doctor in New Zealand by the name of Dr. Saralak. But the depleted mother syndrome, there was a guy, Dr. Hansen, who wrote about that years ago. Another person, a chiropractor, Dr. Rafalak. So these things have been written about before. But the thing with postnatal depletion, which is basically a collection of symptoms that can happen from fatigue, joints going out, autoimmune issues. It can be a wide range of things. It's harder to assess, it's harder to treat. If you just say, and I don't want to say just, but if you say this is depression, then the practitioner may know what to throw at it. But if it is something that's more complex, which we are as human beings, and which we definitely are as women, it becomes more challenging to figure out what to do if you're operating within a certain paradigm.
So this post natal depletion, it showed up for you, if I remember correctly, through just the fatigue that was extended. How, if I may ask, how long does that last for you? And were they willing to, like, your doctors, your care of doctors, your network of doctors, were they willing to believe you? Because I want you to talk about this. The add-on to my question is, we know that women, particularly Black women, in the delivery room are not listened to. Were you listened to? And then tell us about what you know about Serena Williams and her story. Yeah.
So I'll say, in addition to the fatigue, my joints had gone out. It was hard to hold them at times. I had repeated infections. I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, which I was able to, get myself to heal
And this
from.
is 5 months after giving birth.
Well, that was the start of it. That was
Okay,
the start
okay,
of it.
okay.
I ended up with cavities afterwards. It was like, what the heck is going on here?
Right.
I was listened to. So years before I had gotten pregnant, I had gone to a GYN, and it was just a horrific experience, with how I felt like my body was treated. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. So anybody that I then went to see, I kind of was interviewing. And so, I've had doctors, Western doctors, who aren't that thrilled with me because I understand that you work for me. This is my body. I have sovereignty over this.
Please
And
say that again. Please say
this,
that
I
again.
have this is my body. I have sovereignty over this. So I'm interviewing the doctor to see if you make the cut. If I don't feel like you're not going to hear me, if I don't feel like you're not going to help me, then you're not for me. And I believe we all deserve a team of people who understand that the person, that the patient is the one who we have to trust because it's their body.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. I don't care about a test. I don't care about a this or that. If someone says this is what's going on for me, that supersedes everything else. And so
Yes.
that's why, even though I'm a doctor of Eastern medicine, I believe in patient-centered medicine, which is we all need different things at different times.
Yes.
No one person, no one field has the answers to everything because we're multidimensional. Sometimes we may need this, sometimes we may need that. That's why everyone needs a team. If you just, I have people who come to see me who are like, I don't want to do Western medicine. I'm like, well, you're in the wrong place. Because in New York State, when you come to see a licensed acupuncturist, which that's my license in the state, we have to have people sign something that says that you are seeing a Western medical doctor as well. And I think that's a good idea. I think that I've not met someone who is so healthy that they don't need as much information and perspective as possible. And then you get to, with the information, decide what's good for you
Yes.
with
Yeah.
your team. No
I
one
love.
gets to decide for
Yeah.
someone else what happens to their body. That was slavery. That's not now. And if it's happening now, then something's drastically wrong.
And this is why you are like who you are and why we appreciate you, because you being a patient-centered doctor and healer is very contrary to the profit-centered industry that is corporate medicine. So so thank you for that. I wanna remind people, let me just pause for a second. Tell your people, the mothers, the caregivers, whether they've given children or not, tell them right now to sign in and watch Ascending, because this is really, really important information. Not just because it's Black Maternal Health Week, but to have you, Dr. DANETT, talk about the sovereignty that we have over our own bodies runs contrary to how corporate medicine is today. So thank you. So I want to go back and round this up, this particular part. The story with Serena Williams. Remember, we were talking about
Yes.
Black folks not being listened to. For those who don't know and who are watching, tell the audience, because you wrote about this and her experience that she told the world when she gave birth, her first child. So enlighten us on that one, please.
Yes. So I remember what I recall is she was having I think it was some sort of respiratory, or I know it had to deal with what we call like the upper jowl. And she had to pretty much demand what it was. She had to demand care and say, I need this. I need this. And without it being who she was and her insistence, she may have passed also soon after giving birth. And so I did write a blog article a while ago called Thank You, Serena, on her just making this public, because a lot of what's happened is we've gotten this conditioning that this should all be like a commercial, like a Pampers commercial or whatever, like, I've sweat a little bit, I'm fine, and,
Raise your teeth
I've
a
got a
little bit,
baby and
and the
that's it.
baby pops out.
Right. I mean, to me, I feel like this is all a very patriarchal view of like how the use of women is how it's translated to what we've seen. So it's like you're supposed to look this way, and then it's like nothing happened, and then all of a sudden you're a grandmother, you've gone through menopause. It's like it's just based off of the use, how
Yeah.
we've been seen and according to patriarchy, I believe.
And all of this prompted you were so moved by it that you wrote your book on A Taste of Our Own Medicine. And that was an online bestseller. Let's put up the website so people can know, because they can get the book directly from you, right? It was a bestseller on Amazon for quite some time. But you talk about postnatal depletion and the things that we can do to heal, that women can do to heal. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say I was moved. I was, when something happens enough, like I went through enough things where sometimes you just may brush it off. I went through enough that it was like, okay, like it was a promise between me and God. I was like, let me get through this, and I'm going to write about what I wish I would have known coming into this and what I
Yeah.
think would be helpful. And so that is why I wrote A Taste of Our Own Medicine.
We've introduced you as a doctor of Eastern medicine, and before we came on the show, we were talking about the journey for that title. Yes, you're licensed in the state of New York to do acupuncture. Yes, you're a doctor of Eastern medicine, but that's been a journey because in the past you've called it doctor of Asian medicine. So, is there a difference? And if yes, what is the difference and why? Share with the audience why you shifted from Asian medicine to Eastern medicine in terms of your identifier.
Yeah, so I apologize that there is, just to the audience, just in terms of all of the different terms, like if you search these things, right? So
No,
there are
please.
there are some things that if you read, it's like doctor of traditional Chinese medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, Chinese medicine. So my doctorate, if you see it, it says Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. That's what it says on there.
on
And
on the
yes,
paper that you
yeah,
got,
yeah.
Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine.
And Oriental medicine. And over the years, I've had numerous conversations with Asian people, progressive from different parts of Asia, who are like, that is not okay. That's not okay. That's like using the N word. And it wasn't just one person. Like I've had this
Yeah,
conversation, not always with people within the community of this medicine, but just, people who are doing progressive work, and they're like, that's not okay. So over the years, I've been like, okay, well, this says this, but I wouldn't want somebody being like, yeah, I do this N medicine. And that's what one person said to me. It was
wow,
an Asian brother. He was like, that's like if I said, and I was like, okay.
that's
So
bananas. Whew.
right, right. So there are shifts that's happening, and there are so many wonderful people in the community, and there are shifts that's happening. There are schools that have shifted the names of
The
schools. There
language
are things that
change.
are happening. So I
Yes.
personally am making the shift to say Eastern medicine doctor more. One, because it helps people to understand just more so regionally. Because if I say Asia, then it doesn't necessarily give, or for people who say Chinese medicine, let's say, because
Okay.
I close with someone who uses that term. My one of my first teachers, like the style I learned from him, was a Japanese style of acupuncture. There's lots of styles. So that's one thing, it broadens it. And then even beyond Asia, so a quick story, and it'll bring it together. One day I was in school. I'll never forget this day. I was studying to become an acupuncturist. This was like in the early 2000s. And we were in class and we were learning about a particular type of point. And it was called a ashi point. And it was basically like you touch the patient and it's like, is this it? And sure is like, yes. So it's basically, yes, that's it. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh my God, that's Ashe. I was like, "Oh my
I had a
God,
feeling
that's
you were
Ashe."
gonna go there. I had
I
a
was
feeling
like,
you were gonna go there.
yeah, I was like, and I just like something like went off in me after that, and I was like, "What else are the similarities? Like, what else are the things?" And so when I completed, that was my when I had done my master's, I after that I got to study with the late great, and I give honor and shout out to MALIDOMA author of
Yes.
Order in the Spirit and
The
The Healing
healing
Wisdom
wisdom of
of
Africa.
Africa.
Yes.
Yes. So I
Yes.
got to study with him. And in those studies, I got to see that
Wow.
the same elements that we were using and a lot of the correlations were the same that I had just learned in acupuncture school. So when I talk about Eastern, I'm also giving recognition to the different traditions that that have impacted the medicine. And yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. I wanted that clarity to be there because the evolution
yeah,
of the language is important, right?
yes.
Because it is the words, it's the vibration, and it's the meaning and the context and the intention. So I definitely wanted people to know about that for sure. So I thank you for that. I wanted to say, I think you have some tips that you wanted to share with people. Kevin, if we could bring that to the screen, because what are these? The 13 tips of what did you want to share? Let me just
Sure. So yeah, so this is a download that I created, 13 specific tips to help mothers. And this is something that had come about when I was writing the book, because sometimes in conversations with people, they're like, well, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm like, well, here you go. And so these are things that, if you know a new mother, that you can do to help out, or someone who, may just be like overwhelmed. You don't have to be a
Right.
new mother to be overwhelmed. You don't have to be a new mother to be dealing with, a variety of different health issues. And so if you, have some spare time, or, want to figure out ways to support, this is
Mhm.
a list of things that people can do. So sometimes, the thing with writing about maternal health, sometimes people just feel like this is just for the mothers. I'm like, this is not for the mothers. These are for the
That's a
people
really
who
good
are
point.
around the mothers,
Wow.
help them. The mothers can read it and ask, but this is one of the things that I love about the medicine. And there's this view, right, that we're all intimately connected. The
Yeah.
elements that exist outside, the earth, the fire, the water, the metal or the mineral, the air, these things exist within us. So
Yeah.
when someone gives birth to a child, that child is going to be impacting the community, having an impact on the world. So this sort of isolated, nuclear thing that can happen after a woman gives birth and she's just home with the if she has a
Yeah.
partner, whatever, it's not accurate. Sorry, I know I'm bouncing back, but this really is about the interconnection of being able to be of assistance. And as I say that, I think about the doulas who connect. So shout out to all the doulas, shout out to all the midwives, shout out to all the Black midwives, for
But
all the knowledge out there.
let's assume you're spot on. I'm so glad that you brought up doulas, so we can take this down and I want to ask you to explain what is a doula. Can you give us? Because again, I'm always assuming that I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people watching that know what it is, but I'm also assuming that there's some people like what do what like help us out.
Right. So I'm not a doula. So I'm going to say this as I understand doulas. And there are a variety of doulas. So doulas are people who come and who give assistance to women along their reproductive journey and health. So most commonly, people would think of, who know of doulas, think about a birth doula, someone who may be there as a support person when a woman is giving birth. There are doulas who, we eventually got a doula, which was really helpful. Also, we had a birth doula, but postnatal doula who comes in and helps. Any woman who I find out is pregnant, I'm always like, do you have a doula? Do you have one? And for some women I've seen over the years, they'll just kind of feel like, it's a step down to get help. There's like a certain level of ego that sometimes can come
Yeah.
in the mothering, but the doulas can be birth doulas, they could be postpartum doulas. There are doulas that support women when they're having abortions, they're abortion doulas. There
Hmm.
are, and then I've learned recently about women who are doing death doulas, who support
I
people if
was just
they're
about
transitioning.
Yo, I was waiting for you to give that powerful explanation. I just learned that there's a thing called a death doula. I just learned that in 2024. I did not know that. Is that new? Am I just late or is it quote unquote new?
Well, I'll give you two answers. I had never heard of that term. I had never known that to be. It could have happened for longer than that. And I think that we've all that there have been people who've done that work untrained, you know.
Without
I
the
know
without
I
the
have. I know
training.
I've been
Wow.
with
Wow.
relatives as they transition, just being
Yes.
present with someone. So I think that there are those of us who have
Have
done it
been doing that
untrained.
untrained. Just intuitively, would you say? Is that fair to say? Maybe intuitively, just being that support system and caring at whatever stage of the doula work is, be it at birth, postpartum, and the death doula. Would you say some people just know that intuitively?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of the, steps or
Mm.
requirements that they think of for it, but I do think from my experience with doulas that the number one thing is how to be of support with where you're at. What do you need? What are your wishes? And how can I support you in that, in whatever
Right,
that stage is? Yeah.
right. How important is from what you know, and we'll come to a close soon, and we'll go to some questions, but um, I wanna unpack the support system, and we put on the screen Black Maternal Health Week because there's so many resources on that website, blackmamasmatter.org. Those are the folks who founded Black Maternal Health Week, which is today is the second day, April 12th. But Dr. Danette, from your experience, um, how important and in what ways can we just not take for granted the support system that people need, you know, in ushering a life into the world?
Yeah. So how to not take it for granted,
How do we
right?
not take it for granted? And can you kind of like dig into just how important support is that yes, being present, being mindful, but it's financial support, it's economic support, it's energetic support, it's knowing when to back off because the space might be needed. Can you talk about support systems?
Sure. I'll say this, that here in the US, and I don't know, I know there are different ways that societies are set up globally, but
Right.
here and in many places, economics and finances rule time. And so time becomes such a commodity that it can be difficult for people who want to give support, and even for mothers to even be able to think broader. Some mothers are just working to do what they can to get back to work, right?
Right.
Like there's something hugely missing, that in this amazing process of bringing a life into the world, that sometimes does not become the priority, right? Not through anyone's fault, but just with having to, figure out how rent is going to be made, or, what are the things. And so I do believe that, there are places, I know that there are places where there is more community, where, we're not so isolated and nuclear. If we're not so isolated, then, somebody's cooking, and, it's very easy to be in proximity. Someone's down the block. I've had people talk about, the cost of living and how different it was, right? And in the 70s, where somebody has told me a story, they could work part-time and travel. You could do certain things and still be available in a certain way. And so I think
Mm.
that the financial systems, the capitalism, the economic pressures totally affect that. Having said that, the need to be able to rest, to be able to eat well, to be able to feel relaxed, only help the growth of the baby, the connecting, because the baby feels what the mother feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in terms of her recovery, it's really important for her health, and definitely if she's has a subsequent pregnancy. These are the foundational blocks, and even thinking long term for her life. So
Mm.
yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I know that the viewers or those who are listening can get more information on your website, so we'll put that back up. We really appreciate you taking the time. That website is where people can get a consultation with you. Um, Even if there's a wait list, they could still reach out to you, connect with you, get those tips that we saw, get your books, learn more about you and your history. So we definitely want people to definitely go to Dr. DANETT BEAN.com, because that's the one-stop place, yeah, where
Yes,
people can get more
yes,
information.
yes,
And go to Black Maternal Health Week, learn more about it at blackmamasmatter.org. Those Black women founded this to be in alignment with National Minority Health Month, which is April. So there's a lot of thought and work and years of bringing people together so that we can support one another, not just Black women supporting Black women, but everybody who cares. But I want to shout out Moms Rising, right? Because
yes,
my work that I was doing with Moms Rising for a couple of years is how I even knew about this, right?
yes,
Black Maternal Health Week. So go to momsrising.org. People, please, there are so many resources out here. We do not have to do this by ourselves in terms of learning and growing and such. Dr. DANETT, if you could stay with us for a second,
sure.
because we're going to
Sorry.
go to the end. Oh, you wanted to add something?
I want to shout you out. I watch you shout people out. I want to shout you out for the dopeness that you bring, for you holding the
Thank you.
space,
Thank
for
you.
the authenticity that you keep, and the quality people. Like when I watch the episodes, I'm like, wow, like gems, and that's because of who you are and who you've been, and the standard that you've upheld for our people, for our missions, for our goal. They say for the culture. So I thank you.
I receive it. I receive it because I know you give it lovingly. I receive it lovingly, and you know me well enough to know all of whatever good vibes they're coming through me, right? And I got to shout out Mark. Mark Lamont Hill, the owner of the channel.
Yes.
Where you're the 13th episode. Who knew? I didn't, when he asked me to do this, I'm like, word? I don't know. But now I can't get enough of it because of opportunities to bring people like you on. So I thank you. I receive it lovingly. Thank you so much. May all the good vibes boomerang, as Nana Camille always says. But wait, so before you go, I just want to take a peek because we are here for the comments. Let me see what y'all talking about. Make sure we don't have any questions. I see some regulars. Shout out to Morris Red, who is here. Rolando, hey, I just learned that today and I'm a little shook. Was that about the deaf doula? I don't know. Let us know, Rolando. But thank you for coming back and keeping everything on point. Sandy is here. Let's see. Let's bring out this. I went to a chiropractor once because I wanted to try acupuncture. Before I had anything done, let's bring this up to the forefront. Um, Before I had anything done, the chiropractor told me it was a pseudoscience, so I left. I disagree. You see the question?
I went to, and yeah, so I just want to break it down a little bit. So
Yeah.
chiropractors actually aren't licensed as acupuncturists. They
Okay.
might have, the person may have gone to someone who was both a chiropractor and licensed as an acupuncturist, but to become licensed as an acupuncturist, I don't know for all states, but I know in New York State, you have to do years of training, you have to take a test, you have to get licensed, you have to register. There are certain things that have to happen. So I guess I'm going to make the assumption in this case that this chiropractor was also licensed as an acupuncturist. If they weren't, then anything else that comes after that, I kind of gotta like put a little tilt on my head. Before I had anything done, the chiropractor told me it was a pseudoscience, so I left. I disagree, FTR, but how do you feel about the so I don't know if I think I need more clarity because why would they be practicing a pseudoscience? I think I might miss. Do you understand, April? Did I miss something?
I think the biggest thing is that you made the distinction between the two. Because I see some other things in the comments about making the distinction between a chiropractor and an acupuncturist. So I think that's the main thing, the takeaway. And the least of what we should understand is that to be an acupuncturist in the state of New York, you have to be licensed by the state. Yeah.
Yes, and I'll say this. So chiropractors, they do more like adjustments to the spine.
Right.
They're working more like with that. And with acupuncture, so acupuncture is a, if you will, a branch on a tree of
Mhm.
Eastern medicine, or traditional Asian medicine or whatever. And so there are different branches. So we have nutrition, we call Eastern nutrition. We have herbal medicine. We have qigong, which is a form of breath and movement, which we kind of did the starts of that at the beginning of today when we took those deep breaths. There's massage. There's a bunch of different things. So acupuncture became very popular back here when there was some political figure, I'm blocking on their name right now, who had the
Mhm.
experience in Asia, came back and was like, oh, okay, yeah, and gave it the thumbs up. But acupuncture is just one part of a whole medicine. And this is one of the oldest medical systems on the planet. So I say this was back in the day when I say nature was our YouTube. So
Love that. I love
so
that.
that the
I
ancients were sitting around, and that's how they figured out which herbs help with what. So herbal medicine, that whole own thing. So it's a
but
it's a complete medical system.
I like that you said it's a system, but it's a part of other things. And we're going to get to this comment in a second. But I can attest, your husband, Dr. Bashar Wilson, was my acupuncturist in 2017 when I had sciatica. It is the single treatment that most cured me. I didn't do the spine. You know how you can have surgery if you have sciatica. You can do all of these things. I didn't take any medicine. I didn't want to, but I can attest that acupuncture uh, was the singular thing that most, and I was out of work for 4 months with sciatica. Like, they call it the devil's needle. I've heard that phrase, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Mhm.
But I'm just wanting to say out loud that I know it works. Also, Dr. KOKAYI is the first time one of your mentors, right? The famous, esteemed Dr. KAMAU KOKAYI. Shout out to him, and we'll put some information about what he's doing. But when I had sarcoidosis in
I remember this. Yes, I remember this. Yeah.
yeah, the acupuncture, I just gotta say this. It I was losing vision in my left eye, and the doctors thought that it was like a lens thing until I went to the right doctor. It was like, yeah, this is, you need an ophthalmologist because there's a lesion on your optic nerve. So I was like, oh, so my glasses aren't, this is not about bad glasses. So I went to Dr. Kokai, short story, and he did treatments with the acupuncture, and I looked like something from a horror movie. I had needles everywhere. I'm like, really, doc? You putting them in my knuckles? Like, there were needles all over my body. I looked like, and I was sitting in a chair, and I was like, this is weird. My first time, right? And it was spooky because it was needles everywhere, like in my knees and in my toes, all over my body. But I trusted him. 3 minutes later, it felt like 3 minutes, maybe it was longer or shorter. The way that I vomited, the way I ran to the bathroom with all of these needles in his office when he was in Brooklyn, and the projectile vomiting was so extreme and severe
Wow.
that I almost passed out from the vomiting
Wow.
that was a result of the acupuncture,
Wow.
right? And he was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And I share that because this is why I trust Western doctors to a certain extent, but people like you, right? Because within 20 minutes, the I could see instantly, like
Yes.
magic,
Yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
So he was like, you need, after he took the needles out, he was like, you need to lay down.
Yeah.
And because I don't even, like, I've never seen anything like that. But the release
Yes.
was the cure, is what
Yes.
I'm trying to say. So I'm just, caping for acupuncture. That's all. With from the right person.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to say that your experience, so that doesn't commonly happen, because
Right.
so that was an he was giving you a lot of needles and doing all of
Yeah.
that because you had an extreme case.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that
We
the
need not scare
treatment,
people away, right?
but it's good. That's your truth. And the thing
Yeah.
is it was effective. And that's what we really want is
Yes.
what's effective. And so in situations where things are more extreme, that does need to happen. But it's not always like that. Like I haven't
Right.
ever had anybody have to run to vomit and they've had, but also haven't treated that. So
Right. Right. Right.
I have to shout out Dr. KOKAYI, and I have to give a special shout out to Dr. BISHARA Wilson of New York Sports Acupuncture. I have to do it. He's nasty with the pain. Like you got a pain, that's who you want to see. Like
Right.
he's the shoulder fix, the shoulder whisperer, and all that. He did special, trainings. He's done the acupuncture for the Liberty. He's like nasty with it. So if you have pain, New York Sports Acupuncture is where you should
Yeah,
go.
no, he's the best. But wait, so just I can attest. But let's go to this comment that's been sitting here. Hearing that
Yes.
Barry was misdiagnosed with herpes while actually going through menopause makes me wonder if there is a gap in treatment and outcomes for Black women experiencing menopause. And I know this is an area of expertise to you. Thank you, Black Men Investing, who show up every week. Thank you. But can you address that, please? And then we're
Yes.
gonna
So I feel like I'm gonna need to this would be a whole other show.
Right. You
This
need to, yeah,
question,
you can say it. You can say it. You need to come back. We will be
well, I
back.
don't want to be like inviting myself over for dinner. So what we having on Thursday? I'll be there. Okay. Like I bring the wine. I don't I don't
You
want
are
to
welcome here.
thank you. But I will say, I saw that interview and I was like, oh, we can help. I was like, oh, I hope she reached out to, Eastern medicine doctor. There's a huge gap in care. It's a huge gap in care because of what I said earlier in terms of how women have been seen. It's like you're of age or look like you're of age or whatever to be able to have a baby and then you kind of disappear. And so this whole time of perimenopause, which is when a woman basically her body starts preparing to no longer have cycles through menopause, which is when when a woman hasn't had a cycle for a 1 year straight. But then there's also the effects of what that's like. Like some people, it's very a smooth transition, and then for a lot of people, it absolutely isn't. It's the change in hormones, so who she went to see, I'm sure it was, from his lens, I remember her saying like he thought it was this, but then you call back, no, it's not that. Well, we have this understanding of those changes. We talk about yin, which is, if people know, the circle with the yin and the yang symbol, and there's a whole thing with it. But bottom line is, yes, Eastern medicine is great for perimenopause and menopause because the symptoms are complex and there are things we can do. So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We got to have you back because you also do a lot of work around fibroids. That's a whole conversation with Black women. And National Fibroids Awareness Week is in July. Am I
It's a
saying it
whole month.
the whole month?
Enough of us. There's enough
Yeah.
going on with it today. It's like, no, it ain't gonna be a day. It's gonna be a month.
I know that's your thing because we are under the knife to speak very boldly, because the doctors in this corporate medicine context are so quick to cut us open, right? And so that's a whole nother conversation. We could go on, but we're gonna pause here, because this is just part one. Let's just say that this is just part one. We appreciate you deeply. We really could go on, but we want to put up the website one more time so people can truly learn more. Let's say we'll have you back for, what is it, Fibroids Awareness Month, right? Am I hearing you correctly, in July?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll have you back. We'll go into all the things, but definitely thank you so much. I want to give you the last word before I go into my outros. The thing that you want people to most understand, or a big takeaway. If you feel free.
Yeah, every moment is precious, and take your breaths listen to your body, care for yourself, give yourself what it is that you need. If you know, sitting disease is huge, which is when we sit for too long. So make sure you get up and move and love yourself. You know, that can sound kind of cliche, but what does that mean? You know, getting enough water, get to bed. Like really, there's news for days. There's all kinds of things going on. But at the end of the day, we need you here. And so take good care of yourself so you can be as long as possible.
Well, that's a great outro on your part. Thank you so much, Dr. DANETT. I love you much. We'll see you back here on Ascending really, really soon. Thank you so much. So everybody, wow, this was a good episode. This was an informative episode. This was inspirational. I hope you think so. We want to remind you to definitely tell your people. We're here every Saturday at 11 a.m. Tell people that if they miss it live, they can, this lives on the Ascending playlist on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. So the playlist has all of the now 13 episodes. We want to invite you to we have some pennants, right? I want to tell people about the Sonia Sanchez interview. And I want to, yes, there we go. So you remember early on, Sonia Sanchez was like, that was an amazing interview. You absolutely have to go back and watch that one. It says the legendary Sonia Sanchez in the title, but she talked about a haiku workshop. And we've been working on it. Shout out to my team, to LaToya and to Tim. We're working to put this together. I just talked to Mother Sonia just a couple of days ago because this is going to be big. So if you are interested in being something popped up on the screen that threw me off. If you're interested in being a part of the workshop, if you're a poet, seasoned, starting, aspirational, you don't have to have any skills, come email us at the email address that you see on your screen. We are receiving information. We are collecting email addresses because this poetry workshop with our beloved Mother Sonia Sanchez is about to kick off and launch. And so that's a promise that I'm keeping when she said publicly, let's do a workshop, let's gather a small amount. And I could tell you she's raring to go. She's been doing this. It's not new. She's been doing poetry workshops for people who are interested. And that's a one-on-one, it's a small group coaching with our beloved Sonia Sanchez. So email us if you're interested. We will be sending out details soon about how to register, where it's going to be. Some of them will be virtual. Some of them will be face-to-face as best we can. But we're leaving this here so you can, and for those who are listening and not watching, the email address, if you want more information about the Sonia Sanchez-led haiku poetry workshop, the email address is teamsoniasanchez@aquilaworksongs.com. Team Sonia Sanchez, all one word, at aquilaworksongs.com for those who are listening and not watching. So on that note, definitely check out the website, aquilaworksongs.com. Follow me everywhere on social media. My name, April R. Silver, the company, Aquila Work Songs. We thank you so much. We will see you next week. And stay up. Take care.